This is The Close-Up. Conversations about creativity. From our studios in Los Angeles, here is Jim Chabin.
Aaron Parry is with us. He serves as Chief Creative Officer for SteroD, the world's leader in 2D to 3D conversion and visual effects. In that role, he has worked on some of the biggest movie blockbusters of our time, including Captain America: Civil War, Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Mad Max: Fury Road, Jurassic World, and Jurassic Park 3D, along with many, many more. He also serves on the Board of Governors of the Advanced Imaging Society here in Hollywood. Aaron, welcome.
Thank you.
We've wanted you to be here. It's so great to have you. As we speak, Captain America: Civil War has just crossed the $1 billion mark. Star Wars over $2 billion. These are movies and directors who are absolutely nailing it as far as audiences worldwide. And so my question to you is, when you work around Joe and Anthony Russo, or Joss Whedon, or Steven Spielberg, or Justin Lin, or Colin Trevorrow, what do they all have in common?
I would say what they have in common is that they're great visionaries. You know, when you get within their sort of inner circle and you see them approach, for some of them, a new medium like 3D, you can just see how their creativity just sort of, it's like a duck to water, you know? I mean, they just completely envelop a new language for them and then make it their own.
What does 3D do?
At the end of the day, I think we all chase our dream of being immersed in someone else's life, someone else's story, someone else's situation. And I think, you know, for the long time, whether it was visual effects or, you know, an amazing mix or a great score, that would pull you into the story. But actually being able to see something dimensional is that next step into someone else's reality. And it's sort of a beautiful thing for a storyteller, because they then can let the audience experience emotions or aspects of their picture that they just can't quite get with a two-dimensional film.
You're working on Captain America. At what point do you get involved in that process?
Relatively early on. You know, Marvel is a filmmaking powerhouse, as you know, and they start planning very, very early. We maintain a consistent team and partnership with Marvel. We have since the beginning. Their very first 3D film was done by SteroD. So I would say probably right as the film is starting to go shoot is our first conversations about stereo and how it's going to play a role in that story. And then we get far more involved when they sort of return and they're into the director's cut, and we're starting to see some of the first material come across our studio.
I was around you in your office one day when Steven Spielberg had just left, and you were commenting that he is so focused on every shot. He knows exactly what he wants. He's interested in making this or that better. These directors are intimately working with you to make sure that that final picture, when it's shown, is theirs, it's their vision. I'm struck by how many people are involved with you on a team. I always look for your name at the closing credits of a movie, and I always see it, and below you is an army of people that have worked on it. How many people work on your team at SteroD?
SteroD globally is around 1,500 people, so it's quite a large team. And believe it or not, when you get to a major blockbuster, you know, a significant portion, if not over 1,000 people, are touching that film, certainly in the last few weeks of the picture.
What is the process of working with them?
You know, for a director who's experiencing 3D for the first time, it can be one of the best experiences, because it's a new toolbox for them, and they get to open it up and play with all the tools and see how they can continue to enhance their storytelling skills to the audience.
What's the toughest challenge in getting one of these massive projects?
Time, for sure. And, you know, on top of time is really our, you know, core belief that creatively these films have to be exceptional. You know, 3D had a bit of a lift in its early days to come to a quality that everyone demands out of a great cinematic experience, but I think that we led the charge in that conversation, and definitely feel like we have to hold that banner up high.
You're actually working in VR at SteroD, so tell us about that.
We're really excited about, you know, sort of the evolution of our process into VR. You know, I think like I said, we feel proud of the fact that we've sort of been leading the conversation from a 3D standpoint as far as conversion stands, and it's been amazing to apply that process to VR. I think that everything that people are dealing with is how do I deliver content and lots of content from a VR standpoint. And although rendering it in CG is definitely a possibility, a lot of cinematographers and directors are going, well, how do I deliver a live action story in VR? And at the end of the day, I think the holy grail of VR will be it in stereo, so that you're truly immersed in that world. Whereas I think 360 has pretty much been what we've seen up to date. What we're really excited about at SteroD is, we're producing hundreds, if not thousands, of minutes of 3D content a year, and now bringing that process to VR, we think that we would be a solution for people hoping to deliver narrative content.
So you've got hundreds of people working. In the average action-adventure movie that you worked on, many of which we've mentioned, how many different cuts, how many different pieces are in a movie like that you're working on?
It varies from director to director. The last film we worked on with a director like Steven Spielberg, it can be 700-800 cuts. On the Russo brothers movies, who are delivering an intense action movie, it can be north of 2,000 shots.
So you have 2,000 different shots in a 120-minute movie, and every one of those shots has got to be perfect.
Yep.
And you guys are working on every one of those to pull together so that they've got the vision for that movie. What's the most common question you get from a director?
I would say the most common question we get from a director is, tell me how to make the audience really, really happy with my film in 3D. I think they're most worried about their audience, and that it's a pleasurable experience, and that they can deliver. It's a value-add experience when you pay a premium to go get a 3D movie, and they really want to make sure that they deliver for their audiences, that it's a great film in 2D, but if I'm going to go to the effort of making a great 3D film, I really want to make sure that I deliver on that. So that's generally what it's around.
Do you find yourself being assigned to 2 or 3 sequences or moments in the movie where you're saying, this really has got to go right in order for that audience to be moved?
Well, I mean, it's certainly our goal to make every frame of the film equivalently perfect, as I would say. But definitely there are sequences where we really want to make sure we deliver for the audience. I think in Force Awakens, it was the first Millennium Falcon chase, where it was clear it was going to be a moment. JJ was cinematically trying to show the audience something that they hadn't seen really in the Star Wars universe for the first time. And so we wanted to sort of support that to the next level with 3D. I think it's one of the iconic scenes in the movie for sure.
We try to ask everybody who joins us for these conversations, what do you look for? You hire a ton of people. When you interview someone or you're looking at someone, what are the qualities? What are you looking for in the conversation you're having with them that makes you say, I think they'd fit my team well?
Yeah, it's something I'm really passionate about. In the early days of SteroD, I interviewed every single person that came in, and that's probably north of 500 of the first employees of SteroD I personally interviewed. I think that you have to make sure that you hire the person, and if the skills aren't 100% well-rounded, make sure that you're hiring somebody that's going to be passionate. At SteroD, we have full-time employees that stay year on year. It's something unique, I think, in the visual effects industry, and it's something we wanted to try again, much closer to the animation industry. And the benefit, not only to them in their career path, but the benefit to the company and the creativity that sort of blossoms out of the experience of having been in the business for many, many years, has been wonderful to see. You always want to make sure that the person that you're talking to when you're trying to get hired understands your passion, and also can see that passion represented in the art that you're showing or any of the written material you're giving. It all has to come together as a single package.
But you know what's interesting, Aaron, is we hear commonly when people answer this question, it's not, I want to see these 3 things on the resume. It's more about the person.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Iowa.
I grew up in Kansas.
Yep.
Okay. You don't get from Kansas to Iowa to
No.
where we are in Hollywood without some people helping us and giving us breaks when our resumes probably
Yeah.
didn't fit what they were looking
It's
for,
true.
but they hired something else. And I've always been eternally grateful because I know the people, and I know when Dean LeGraw at CBS, people who somehow called me back on the phone and said, okay, you're hired. And I've always wondered, how did I get hired when I know my resume wasn't as strong?
It is.
Piece of advice.
I learned a couple lessons early on. I remember meeting with a gentleman named Buddy Baker when I was trying to get into USC film school. And at the end of the day, he told me it's like 250 people will apply, only very limited numbers will get in. And I was incredibly fortunate enough to get into the school. And I remember showing up on the first day, and he goes, "Oh, you're that kid from Iowa that drove all the way out here to meet with me." And that spoke volumes to me, that was the singular moment that he thought was the most impressionable one on him, that I was passionate enough to get myself out here to meet with them. And I think that's what I look for in people, is that passion where you know that they're going to, this is what they want to do. And what's exciting about SteroD is we're getting to experience that passion also all over the world and connect it, which has been an amazing experience.
When you're taking on Captain America or Star Wars, you know before you get this that this is one of the biggest movies of the year. Do you get yourself into a zone before you talk to your staff knowing that, okay, I have to have a talk with them about what we've just been handed to do?
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you say?
Well, I usually do it with some theatrics. I like to excite them on the opportunity or the responsibility. I think that anyone that earns a good living and a great paycheck to make art should be incredibly thankful for that opportunity. And I always approach it with that sort of passion. But then when you're also handed the responsibility of helping deliver something that is historic from a filmmaking standpoint, or it will be remembered as a clear moment in time when the Star Wars brand was relaunched. I think that anyone and everyone who gets those opportunities has to really understand and value them. And that's definitely what I try to impress upon the folks in the studio. But usually with these types of films, there's not much I have to say. It's kind of inherently ingrained in them. So.
Well, you've got a great boss, William Sherrick, and I got to tell you, we are grateful that he hired a kid from Iowa.
Thank you.
And this company is better because of your presence. This industry is, and the movies that I go to see are better because your name is on them and your team is behind them. And I wish you all the best of luck. And I know you've got something big coming up, but you can't talk about it, right?
Right.
You're under wraps. You'd have to kill me if you told me.
I would.
So all I can tell you is there are a couple of very big movies coming up this summer that you're working on right now. So promise that you'll come back after they come out and tell us all about them.
Absolutely.
Okay, Aaron Parry, thank you.
Awesome.
The Close-Up is produced by the Advanced Imaging Society in Hollywood and powered by Barco.